Okay.
So unfortunately, Hyper, the third startup is facing some technical issues. We hope to, see them join in the middle of the session, but I guess we can begin without.
Great.
So yeah, we are live. So welcome everybody to this fireside chat. I'd once again like to thank Chetan and Prateek for giving out their valuable time to addressing these queries our founders have. So it is always nice to hear from people who have been there and done that. So just introducing our founders. So Chetan is the co-founder and vice chairman at Sun Mobility. Sun Mobility separates battery from vehicle and offers it on a pay-as-you-go model, enabling EVs to be financially viable. Swappable batteries address key EV adoption issues such as high upfront costs, range anxiety, and long refueling time. Chetan also built India's first electric car as the founder of Riva Electric Car Company, now Mahindra Electric Mobility, where he served as CEO. Chetan is the director of Many Group and co-founder of Virya Mobility 5.0. He's also an investor and on the board of several clean tech startups. Glad to have you here, Chetan, with us.
Thanks.
Uh, yeah, and our other founder for today is Prateek. So Prateek Gupta is the founder and CEO of Strom Motors, which is building the Strom R3, a, a personal electric mobility solution built for crowded cities and semi-urban locations following the reverse strike platform. Prateek and co-founder Jean were earlier working together in Washington, D.C., in a R&D company delivering innovative solutions for NASA, the US Army, and Homeland Security. The company was previously also involved in a slew of R&D projects with leading organizations in India and US working on technologies related to renewable energy, battery, and embeddable control systems. Glad to have you here with us, Prateek, as well.
Thanks, Harsh. Pleasure's mine, yeah.
Yeah. So, without further ado, we'd firstly like our startups to introduce ourselves. So, I'd ask Emote to go first, Emote Electric.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harsh. My name is Pranav. My startup is Remote Electric, and we are building India's first geared electric motorcycle. So this would be something that can compete with petrol motorcycles on price, performance, and convenience. We are also lowering barriers, so you get the same kind of ride and feel as you would from a petrol vehicle. We have a top speed of 120, range of 300 on a charge, and 0 to 60 time of under 4 seconds. And we won the Masscom Design for India Award. We have exhibited at the Auto Expo, and we expect to start the first deliveries by next year, probably January or February sometime. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Pranav. And moving on to Darwin. So, I'd ask Rahul to introduce Darwin.
Hello everyone. Thank you Pratik sir. Thank you Chetan sir for being here. Uh, at Darwin, our focus is building electric vehicles for business. Our first vehicle is trying to achieve 50% conversion in the food delivery and the logistics space. Zomato, Swiggy are some of our clients, and we have a vehicle that is completely made in India. So our focus has been to make in India, and our vehicles will be delivering from 15th of September. So hoping to have a long and a good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. So we'll begin with the session. Our founders, basically, our startups had questions regarding four themes. So the first theme is, how do you see the industry evolving? Will startups continue or merge with established players offering their technical expertise for the manufacturing and supply chain expertise of experienced players? So yeah, on that, Chetan and Pratik, what are your thoughts?
Sure, Chetan, go
Sure.
ahead.
I think that yeah. So I think that there's going to be different. Post COVID, we're going to have challenges. The long term vision on electrics is very big. So I wouldn't doubt that for any second. It's going to happen globally, and it's the right time to probably be in this space. The key is, where do you want to play, and what makes sense on this front. Now, while it always is exciting to do everything, and that's good to get a set of experiences because you understand the entire system, it's probably also important to see where to focus to really solve a key problem that the space has, and something that can be bite-sized to start off with to look at it. So I think there are going to be opportunities around new models around first mile and last mile for goods and delivery. It seems like you guys are already working on that part of it. There are going to be areas around technology that look at new innovations, maybe around the BMS, battery management, new charging technology, high efficiency motor systems, telematics, and IoT. But again, it's not about just saying, "Oh, I can put this together." It's about how do you address a consumer um, real need, and can you give a differentiated solution on this area from this front, right? And and the third areas would be that there are a lot of OEMs. There's the ecosystem building up, right? That there could be a piece of the puzzle that you could go in as a tier one and support, which could be a combination of initially looking at the engineering side of it, but integrating it to a product as you work with them. So these could be the fourth area. I think there's going to be a lot of work on the infrastructure side that comes in on charging and swapping and other forms that would support the EV industry. It's very nascent. It could be all the way from hardware to software to connection and solutions around making it more ubiquitous as this thing opens up. So these are some areas which are still open, and I think that it's much more level playing field for startups on this front. It's not that we're working with an OEM with 30 years experience, and you're clearly seeing that everywhere in a very short period of time has become very successful. And so I think we see that in the US and China and other places. So I think it's a good area where the level of competition and capabilities that you put together can allow you to probably sell much easier today than probably if you had been 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think I'll pick up from where Chetan. I think he described the sectors and the places where startups can actually make a difference. But I'll probably talk more about, do we really think startups can actually make a difference in this, hugely competitive, you know, business? I think that's we kind of have to take a leaf out of all the previous.
Um, I think we lost Pratik there. So hoping that his internet connection stabilizes. Yes, he's back. Hi Pratik. Hi Shia. So I guess we lost you somewhere.
Yeah, I think I got lost in between there. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're audible.
First, am I audible?
Yes, Pratik, you are audible.
Yeah,
Yes.
about that. Yeah, so I was talking really about can startups really make a difference? And like I was saying, we kind of can learn more from different technology revolutions around .com, e-commerce. I think it's an area which is ripe for startups to make disruptive technologies, and so I'm super hopeful, and I know for sure that startup like yours and several others who are coming up are going to be the game changers here. I think in terms of specifics, Chetan already mentioned that there's a lot of space even as component manufacturers, technology advancements, especially in terms of automated driving also. So these are also some of the spaces that will account for a lot of new companies that need to enter this space. So these are some of the things that also young companies like yours can look at while you're building your product.
Yeah, so Hyperelectric is here. They were able to join in. So Sivabalan, I will ask you to introduce yourself to our guests.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. I guess he's still having some technical issues. Yes. So moving on. Do our founders have any questions when it comes to um, how exactly they see the industry moving forward? Rahul or Pranav?
Yeah, so I just wanted to pick up from like ask Chetan sir from what he said that there have been, as he said, the need for plugging in different gaps in the existing ecosystem, right? So be it charging standards or something, or technology, something on the technology side. From your experience, sir, why do you think that we haven't seen a startup get really big in terms of I think the only big name I can think of is Okinawa at this point, right? So which isn't really working kind of like Aether or something that Pranav is doing by developing the technology in house. So why haven't we had our big EV company yet?
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of things. One is, do you first have the right product or the solution that the market really wants? Two, I think it needs a strong level of R&D. Getting things from external markets and piecing milling together will not give you a long-term competitive advantage because you don't understand the core. The third is, the West has seen a lot more finance into businesses, into startups. And that's been a challenge here where everyone's been drip fed. Now, a few startups are getting more monies, but in general, you're seeing very few startups having more than say $5 or $10 million in cash to start to build up, right? They're all in the sub $5 million region, right? And three or four companies are probably in the level above that on this area, five companies maybe. So I think that that part is an important thing. And three, we haven't fully, as a country, the ecosystem is just coming together, right? And so there are pieces of the puzzle where everyone is waiting and watching for the other pieces. So every day, new policies coming together. In last 1 week, you've seen so many new policy changes or announcements on this area, right? Delhi policies coming out on this. So now, if both of them come together, and each one is an enabler for the other. So if you look at So I would say that where if you look at China, you look at when how it took off, a lot of the ecosystem played a role and policy played a role, right? If you look at some of the startups in the US, some of these same categories did it. But on the other side, if you think of the progress that's been made in the last 24 months in India, it's been huge. A ton of companies have now coming in. You're seeing, the Flipkarts and the Amazons and the big baskets wanting to adopt electrics. You're seeing both Ola and Uber working on electrics, right? You've seen, transportation. You've seen transportation deliveries for, like lithium and other companies doing corporate transportation. You have buses now running in 10 cities where had zero electric buses, 12 months ago, right? Bangalore has already 130 charging points installed by Gascom in the last few months, right? And so has other things. So if you think of the progress, it's been quite good, but it's still a long way to go, right? And things don't happen overnight. It's not that you are ready. If the thing is ready, you have to be working 2 years before for it to really work today, right? So people are starting today to get in. It's not going to happen immediately, right? So to me, my biggest thing is timing, right? And my biggest learning, even from the Reva days of doing that, we launched in 2001, is that we were good at technology, good product, we sold it globally, but the timing was not correct. I think today the timing is right. And now it means you've got to get the rest of the pieces correct, right? And the difference here is today it's a flat world. The expectation of people on products and services has to be equivalent or better to what they're used to. So that is very critical, right? Be it
Right.
style style of what people is used to, the connectivity of people what's used to. They're comparing to their phone, they're comparing to other services. So is the value today better than status quo, right? And if it is, you have it. So their customers are also becoming much more picky than they probably were earlier, right? So that also, so the bar has raised for all of us in terms of making it on this front. Huh? So but in long term, I do believe that this India is going to be one of the biggest markets, right? And things like the new Bharat 6 emissions that have come out have only made two-wheelers and three-wheelers far more expensive, which is another advantage for us to look at it from a country
Right.
point.
Um, that's great to hear about how exactly India is coming along. So another question, another theme that our founders really wanted you guys to address was how important do you think is vertical integration when it comes to approaching EV manufacturing? So how have you guys exactly, what do you say, done that in your startups? And I guess our startups can also chime in as to how exactly, like what problems they are facing in their manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think vertical integration, the way we see it.
I think we just lost Pratik there.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
So sure. So I think vertical integration is a very broad topic. So vertical integration, are you talking just in a EV product or the entire ecosystem, right? So some companies are trying to do it across the ecosystem, right? And some companies are looking at only at the product level, right? So when I think of the ecosystem, it's technology, it's going to be components, it's going to be vehicles, right? It's going to be the infrastructure, it's going to be mobility solution shared providers on this area, right? And the entire thing that comes together to look at it. So some people are saying, hey, I am an OEM. I go into the charging infrastructure and even to a solution, right? I'm actually doing a solution and I'm going to go downwards into saying I want to do all the rest of it and become an OEM too, right? And I'm a component manufacturer and I want to become an OEM, right? And then I'm an OEM and I have two strategies. I'm going to do everything myself or I'm going to take an approach of partnership. Right? Now, I think both models work, and the model of partnership has been most successful in China because the ecosystem exists very well. So, if you think of the way a new phone comes together, you can get, a screen from A battery from B, a chipset from C, put in the OS together, and you create a little bit of differentiation, and you have a product and time to market very quick. What you focused on is probably what was differentiated for a consumer, right? And everything else you've used, which is not differentiating for a consumer on this area. But that is when the ecosystem has matured on this area. I think that for smaller platforms of vehicles, it will follow that model in the next 3 to 5 years, where you will have distributed manufacturing, right? When things mature up, where you will be an integrator of systems and you will not glue everything together. Because if you want to be the best motor manufacturer, you've got to have 50 people in R&D on motor manufacturing and thinking ahead, right? And if you want to be the best battery guy, you've got to be having 50 guys thinking of batteries or more, right? On this area, only on the cell, and then on the battery management and everything else. So it starts to specialize when you want to go into, right? But in the beginning, when consumers are, when startups are trying to look at it, they're finding that they don't have all the pieces, and so very often, you say, why can't I do all of it? I think the focus, what I would think is, if someone can do it better than you, let them do that. If you believe you can create that part which allows you to create a differentiation, do it yourself. Maybe that becomes your new business in the future, right? So that should be the way of you think of vertical integration, not from a point, I like to do everything and it's exciting, that's great, but finally you lose focus and it's very complex, right? I've done full cars and it takes a lot of effort to put all of it together. And today we're doing batteries, and we're not focusing on cars. And we're focusing on batteries, stations, a small piece. We're not focusing on on other pieces of the puzzle, right? We're helping them. But I think it allows you to then create a truly differentiate value, and you have engineers and technology working on it, and you then create something that meets consumer requirements. So there is vertical integration, but it depends on the markets and the sizes and where you want.
So, sir, this question had actually come in from me, where I had a specific, a tier one suppliers not really ready to, or even the tier two suppliers not ready to work on very risky components. Right. So even though in India we have a robust PCB manufacturing ecosystem, we are not able to build the controllers from the ground up in India. So the question was very correctly addressed by you, where you stated that the entire ecosystem has to be developed. But do you think there are specific routes that a startup like us can take to get these people on board to start working with us? Because I think now is the time. Even a small company like me, we are doing 70 to 80 units a month, right, in bookings. So I mean, we can pretty much support an ecosystem for supply. So how do you think we should approach this problem?
Yeah. Rahul, it's so much easier today than honestly it was 20 years ago when I started Reva, right? Because there was no supplier, there was no technology, there wasn't any financing, there wasn't regulation, there wasn't policy, right? So I think we're in a much better state, right? What I think helped me at that level is first is that your supply chain needs to understand your vision, right? Because 80 pieces a month will not make a dent for them.
Right.
But if they see you becoming that player in the future,
Right.
right, that would what excite them because they want to be part of the journey. Two, if they believe they are being stretched and innovating as a result of involving with you, they would like to do that because that would allow and stretch them in their organization on this area, right?
Right.
So, what value will they also get on this front? And we found that we did in those days, even battery companies created our own test equipment and shipped it to them, had them do it. They found they gained a lot from us, right? So I
Right.
think that the these two things would help, right? In at this point, and probably choosing suppliers today who also are seeing that listen in the next 3 years their vision is to be in electric, and this is an early start for them, right? And there are many of them today. All the component suppliers today are very keen to be part of it. They see that as getting into it, they see it as an acquisition opportunity of the future, they see it as a technology thing. So I would say that these are the things that you could focus on with them, and but it is but everything can be done here if you have the right thing today. Electronics or controllers, it just shouldn't be a problem. There is enough suppliers today. Maybe there's not technology, and you have to support them on that part, but there's suppliers probably to manufacture and support you on that front.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Pratik,
think Rahul, I think if you lead with vision, as in if you start from top to bottom rather than bottom to top, talk to the leadership, try to get in front of them, tell them what's your vision. I think we've seen a lot of support. In fact, I give all the credit for whatever we have reached to these suppliers who really put in resources, money, time, effort, even guiding us at certain points. So these guys are people who have been in the industry 30 plus years and they know everybody. They know how things can get done. So if you connect with the leadership teams in these tier one, tier two suppliers, I think all those doors will be opened, from then on. So I think going from top to bottom probably is a better way to kind of navigate through this.
Let me add in my 2 cents, if I may, because we started a little while back and we had the similar kind of issues. I mean, I think I mentioned backstage that we ended up doing much more than we actually set out to do. So the reason was just this, that we couldn't find suppliers who who are willing to provide us with a lot of the stuff that we needed. Plus, as we kept developing, say, one component, one subcomponent, we realized, okay, maybe if we change something like, say, if we made some changes in the chassis here, then we could probably unlock a lot more value in it. We could unlock a lot more potential in the design. That's kind of how we ended up making the chassis, the suspension geometry, just a whole load of things. And yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, Rahul, because we have faced quite a few of the same problems. And yeah, it's especially for a small startup like us. I mean, I don't think our suppliers really have much to go by because I mean, we don't have any history as such with them. So I think it's yeah. I mean, like Chetan said, it's just we have to try to convince them about our vision and convince them that we are better than the other 250 startups that are out there who are, I guess, importing from China or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
it's kind of boiling down to that.
Pranav, it's also important to focus on the parts that make the difference, right? So if you're taking a bike, don't try to reinvent the suspension or the bushing stuff. Get the best suppliers who can supply those components for you, and they will do a much better job, right? But if you're trying to say that, listen, we want to get a certain piece of how our BMS is, or how we're going to think of throttle response, or how we're thinking of certain aspects that are going to differentiate it, right? That's where spend the effort, get the tech ready, and then you can have suppliers who produce for you at scale and quality, which is very important for you, right? So you have certain suppliers which you rely on their technology, which are not critical to your business, but they are very important because if you don't, very often startups focus so much on motors, controls, everything, they forget about vehicle dynamics and all the other pieces that why customers buy vehicles, right, in the field.
Yeah, yeah.
And therefore, those pieces are known for people for 30 years. So you use expertise of those areas, but the other part is not. System integration is not, right? And focus on those parts. Develop the technology, but then find partners to build it for you and assist them. So if you're doing a motor system, maybe your current supplier doesn't know how to build motors at that level. So you work with him to get it in his manufacturing process, but you get your design to ensure that you're getting a better winding, and so therefore you have a higher efficiency, or how you want to bond magnets or things. It's a big example. It's how you focus and how you work, and that's important in this space.
Uh, Thank you everyone for your insights on that. So another theme that our founders wanted you to address was, and I think this is like Chetan, you can talk on this. How have you approached the battery manufacturing process exactly? And do you import full packs or make them in-house or through an Indian vendor? I guess this can be tackled by Prateek as well. What are the differences according to you in all of these approaches? And what method did you choose? And what are you currently following?
So we completely first we start at a design level. So we completely design our battery packs. We work with over 40 different cells, and we then decided to use a certain cell chemistry because we need very long life. We then work with the supplier of cell chemistry to tweak the chemistry for our requirements. So it's a very specific cell because we need 4,000 cycles from our batteries, which typically give you 1,200 cycles on this area, and that's absolutely critical for our business. Then we needed to create a lot of advanced thermal management, which has been all done by us. We needed to look at, we have 3 onboard computers, so we have the IoT part, we have the battery management system and power management. We have custom patented connectors, which allow you to take 10,000 cycles, right? So every piece of the battery has been designed by us. We control, parts of it are built by our suppliers, like the components for it, to our design. Except for the cell, we don't import anything. The packs are then assembled in-house. We have an full assembly line. And we do over 130 tests and all the end-of-line equipment, because nobody in the world was manufacturing the kind of tests we wanted to do. We actually designed and built our own test equipment that does over 130 checks. And everything is then put into our cloud on this area. So we strongly believe that you want to control every stage of this area, because the difference in our business model is we're not selling the batteries, we own them, and therefore it's like our asset. And if we can tweak the performance of the battery a little bit more, we get more life out of it, we can supply the consumer a better value proposition, a lower cost per kilometer, right? I think that depending on your application, you would take a different strategy, right? And so therefore, if you were an OEM and your requirements weren't very stringent on this area, then you'd probably find a battery supplier who would assemble it for you on this area. and give you a generic thing, and you focus on the interfaces and say, you're responsible for this, give me a pack, give me this warranty, give me this requirements, I don't care. However, if you find that that piece has to be very differentiated because what you're providing is something very unique and you can't get it, then would make sense for you to develop that piece of it. But if you want to get it right, there's a lot of effort has to go in there, right? You're talking really understanding BMSs, understanding chemistry. It's not about just top level. Okay, I'll get protections, but needs a very deep level of involvement, and so therefore that effort has to go in to look at it, right? Similarly, in the manufacturing, to get high quality manufacturing at scale, it's going to need a lot of work. So if you believe you'll have high volumes, if you believe you need something differentiated, then I would suggest you do it, all of it in house. If you feel that listen, I'm doing a vehicle and my end goal is to supply great product to customers and batteries are a piece of it, well, I'll work with a supplier who can get it for me because I can't get the cost structures when I buy low volumes, but he can probably because he can add that on. So strategy would depend a little bit upon your requirements, that cost and performance.
Yeah, I think to add to it, I think startups need to start thinking. I think Chetan touched upon it before that. Where's your value proposition? Is your value proposition the product? Or what part of the product is your value proposition that you are most efficient, or is your value proposition that your batteries are going to outlast everybody else by 2 times? So depending on that, as startup founders, you need to take those decisions. Is a battery or any other component? Is it something that you want to spend your time on? Because time is the only resource that that you have very very limited on. So I think more from just talking about the battery, I would talk in general is like as a startup we need to kind of understand. And I'll give you an example in Strom. Strom is trying to bring a new mobility solution to the Indian ecosystem. And if we had to concentrate on batteries, it's such a complicated topic. And Chetan and his company has been doing just that. What gives me the right to say that I'm going to pull the whole vehicle together and also do the battery justice like what Chetan and his team can do? That is something that we need to kind of be realistic about. Is like let's partner with so you should set your own quality standard. Is like my customer is expecting this level of performance. So who's out there who can give me that? And maybe today they're a little expensive, but with volumes they'll come down in price, and we'll work together. But we need to kind of hold off on what to build and what to buy. On several of these, especially when you're looking at OEMs, and I think most of you guys are OEMs or planning to be OEMs. The whole urge to make things has to be controlled. We in fact have a huge debate every time we think we want to make something. About we need to do cost benefit analysis, long term, short term, and all of those. So in terms of that goes for batteries also. Like batteries are so complicated. There's so much value in that part of the BOM that you much rather feel safe to do it with somebody who's really doing justice to it. So that's the way we thought of it, and we didn't want to get into it. We partnered with one of the top 3 in the world in that sense, and we are using their product. And also on the vehicle side, we tried to be agnostic, because what we understood is India is going to be like for some time at least, is going to be a slightly distributed market. Like somebody in North India will not be able to supply in South India and all of those things. So the way we designed our vehicle is our batteries are something that are swappable and are easily can take sun mobility solutions versus somebody else in the ecosystem. So our clients at the end of the day, if they're looking at fleets or even end users, can actually lease these batteries and have like similar batteries across the platform. So those are some of the decisions that we took, from what we see the value that Strom brings to the end consumer. So these are some of the things that as founders you need to think really early on, strategically, where you want to invest your time and effort.
Pranav and Rahul, how exactly are you going about your battery manufacturing process?
Well, Sorry. Yeah, for us, yeah, batteries is quite critical. I mean, it is the Achilles heels of electric vehicles. So right now we work with a supplier closely, and they will make the batteries for us for our kind of charge discharge rates, and yeah, I guess the kind of envelope that we have within which we have to fit it. So yeah, we don't do too much of the heavy lifting in terms of development of the battery itself and the pack, but we will be getting a little bit into assembly as we start launching, as we come close to the launch of the vehicles. So we have tried out quite a few chemistries actually. We have tried out LTOs, LFPs, LMOs, and it's just been, yeah, we just have to learn the hard way what works, what doesn't, and who's. I think the biggest challenge here has been finding a good supplier, because it's hard to tell when you're just ordering batteries initially how long these will last and whether they'll be able to support us, whether they will be able to support our application. So yeah, I think maybe somebody else could throw some light about how they are dealing with it. Perhaps Pratik.
So in our case, we have had a fire happen in my living room because of a battery that was put together wrongly. So I almost died that day. So it, I had to take it on myself to ensure that that never happens to any of our customers. So yes, initially we were buying these batteries, and they were mainly NMC batteries, and then we decided to take the shift and move to something safer. So at this point today, we are only importing the Texas Instrument IC from US, and we are importing the cells from Korea. So we have decided to build the product independent of the Chinese supply chain. And in the process, we have developed our own BMS with the inbuilt IoT, for which we have a supplier which is built to our design, something like what Chetan sir had mentioned. So we build our BMS to our design on the TI-IC with a supplier in Gandhinagar in Gujarat, and we assemble the vehicles ourselves. Sorry, the battery packs ourselves. So a lot of the cell sorting machines also in our factory are actually made by us, because we were able to build a much faster cell sorting machine than we were getting in China for almost half the price. So in the process, it's been almost 1.5 year that we were able to set up the entire infrastructure, going from the BMS right from the design, because we just had to do one pack, and we decided to standardize that one pack across all our vehicles. So every year we have a dedicated team working on that one pack that makes an update, and that update, both in terms of software and hardware, can be rolled out to the entire fleet. So that is something that we have focused on. We have right now our facility in Ahmedabad is able to assemble about 400 batteries a month, and our bread and butter actually came by supplying battery packs for e-rickshaw applications, both L3 and L5. So, yeah, over the years, we have actually made battery as one pillar of our cash flow, and that has actually helped us stay alive. So, it's a very different story for us, and yeah, I am hoping that we are, once our product enters the market, the battery does justice to it.
Hello all, am I audible? I'm sorry I was not able to connect you guys earlier. I'm Sriram, by the way, Hyper Automotive's founder. So, following the discussion with Mr. Pratik and Mr. Chetan were discussing, especially regarding the fact that there are multiple battery suppliers out there, and across India, you won't have the same kind of battery pack solutions that will be available. So, how do you foresee the standardization of this? Say, for example, what Sun Mobility is doing is you go to an IOCL petrol bunk, you will get the same kind of battery packs out there, and you are going for a swappable battery pack. But when you are dealing with, say, multiple battery solutions, is there some standardized procedure or a platform which is there in the near future? I'm asking this most from a standpoint of what we are trying to do. We are at a much earlier stage compared to the other founders here, and we are focusing on the heavy vehicle segment, and we are trying to basically make them a hybrid vehicle uh, before they become completely electric. And as you guys rightly pointed out, we are looking to not get into areas which are not our expertise. So something like battery pack would be probably bought from vendors like Sun Mobility. So that, how do you ensure maximum compatibility? Is there some standard which is going to be there present in the near future, or is there some? What is the outlook for this particular scene?
So it's a very broad topic, but let's take an example. You're saying you're doing a hybrid.
Yeah.
So most hybridization areas are going to be 48 volts, right? And they're probably going to be sub 20 kilowatts, right? It's a very inexpensive solution, and so you're seeing, starter motors become the generators that you have outputters today are being reconfigured to give you up to 20 kilowatts of power, which means probably vehicles that are up to probably 100 kilowatts would be which probably constitutes 95% of vehicles in India on this one can use such systems. And 48 volts will become the standard. And you're seeing a lot of components being developed by the auto industry, where you could get a small battery pack, you could get a electronic device, a DC-DC converter. And so I would suggest that if you're thinking the hybrid route, go on a 48 volt system. And I think because of Euro 6 and new regulations globally, that's going to be a big driver of technology on this area. Right? In our case, we looked at it a little bit differently. I looked at over 22 million vehicles are produced in India, which are two-wheelers and three-wheelers and small pickup trucks, up to maybe 1.3 tons, and said that what would you need for this in terms of battery range, capacity, and performance in terms of C-rate discharge. And we came up with one solution where you could use one battery for a bike, two for an e-rickshaw, or three for an e-auto. And the same product could be duplicated, but the components remain the same. The battery also remains identical, but the batteries go into a dock, which then communicates with the vehicle. We provide the dock, and the dock has its own ECU, which then talks to the vehicle and scan bus. So therefore, you could give a very flexible nature of information and performance to that particular vehicle, while still using a standardized product on this area. And that's what most OEMs would like. They would like to have flexibility, and what we would like to have standardization.
Okay.
So this is the way we've approached it. And the third level of standardization that you're going to start to see is, you're of course seeing cells at 18650 or 21700s, or Europe is now coming up with prismatic cells that are standardized on this area. So you're going to see a set of standardization there, right? And you're probably going to start to see some sort of standardized modules that are available. But the application can completely change it, right? Are you able to liquid cool it or air cool it? Is it for an underhood application in the case of a hybrid, or is it in a scooter or this area? What happens at a 45-degree ambient? So, and therefore the conditions of utilization can completely change the way you need it. So there will be standardizations within a certain spec. The standardization of battery or 48-volt battery for a hybrid vehicle will be completely different from something that you would need for an electric vehicle for a scooter, right? But within that gamut, you may have standardization on this area. So I think for you, it's probably, if you're a hybrid system, my suggestion would be to focus more on what you're seeing. The direction that Europe is taking is probably the right direction around that. And maybe some learnings from there would be good for you as you start to think on the hybrid side.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think 48 is what we also chose mainly because of the reasons that Chetan mentioned, that, it's the most ubiquitous amongst two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and, to be able to latch on to that ecosystem, it gives you a huge cost advantage, availability advantage in others. And then also coming back to how we think this ecosystem will develop. Standardization in terms of voltage is one thing, but standardization in terms of overall battery specs is something that is probably not going to happen or shouldn't happen actually. So it's as vehicle developers, we looked at what's more commonly available, and we created a standard spec that we provide to all these battery manufacturers. And also from where we see it, our consumers, our battery pack, we use about 6 to 8 of these battery packs that are 12 kilos each. So for a consumer, it's almost impossible to take those home and charge it. So those are going to happen at his residence or parking space. But as a fleet owner, you're looking at the ability to have a trained team to actually swap out these batteries, and there is where there are certain fleets which have certain affinity to battery manufacturing. Either they have their own manufacturing setup or they have some tie-ups. And as an OEM, we are trying to kind of work with them in terms of being compatible with their systems. And so far, it's been working out great. So having a minimal spec in terms of this is the absolute basic that we need very clearly spelled out to the fleet owners so that they can kind of foresee your vehicle fitting into the larger ecosystem, especially if you're looking at B2B as your main client base, trying to understand what are your problems of the client. The client is dealing with 15 different, scooter manufacturers and, 20 different locations. For them to be able to, buy a large sum of battery or service different batteries across different models is going to be quite challenging. So can you alleviate those changes? And that is what will make you stand out of the other 250 who are using something more proprietary. So that is depending on where you are in the value game or where your strategy is. You can choose. If you're just consumer focused and you think your consumer is going to be able to charge your vehicles at a particular location, then I think you can do your own design. You can be more creative in terms of battery cooling and other stuff. But if you're trying to be the B2B kind of supplier, then I think working with what the ecosystem is driving towards is important. So having your eyes and ears around, just seeing what's happening in the industry is extremely critical.
So I think my point was slightly was not well communicated. So what we are trying to do is mostly address the current fleets of say buses and trucks which are out there. And currently we have a product which is basically improving their fuel efficiency. And through this we are able to collect a lot of data. And what we are trying to do is basically convert these existing vehicles to hybrid. And again, like Mr. Pratik rightly pointed out, each of these fleets would have their own preferences in terms of what kind of battery pack they want to go for or what kind of charging ecosystem do they have. So I was asking my question regarding standardization more in terms of that, but I think you guys have answered my question already quite well.
Okay. Guys, I have a hard stop at 8 o'clock here. So I need to exit, but I wish you guys all the best. All I can tell you, I've been doing this for 30 years. It excites me waking up every morning. It's good to do something that can actually change society. And I'm glad that more and more of you guys are doing this. Keep up with it. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy area. But I think if you keep up with it and keep your vision and put your best in there, all of these are going to make a huge impact. And stick to this. Huh? Wish you guys all the best. And
Thank you, sir.
thanks, Harsh, for organizing. And look forward to meeting you guys sometime in the future in person.
Thank you so much, Chetan.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks.
Meeting each other.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
So one final theme that our founders wanted to be addressed was competitiveness in the present industry and the rise of extreme competition from future automobile technologies, including drones, EVs, and driverless vehicles. So how exactly should startups go about with navigating this extreme competition, and what are the startups going to be who end up surviving this competition?
Yeah, so I think one thing is pretty clear that automotive is not going to, it's going to be different, but it's not going to be, wiped out by drones and stuff like that. Deliveries are going to happen with drones, but there's still, deliveries that will happen through, through bikes and other smaller vehicles and stuff like that. So I think overall, the automotive industry is here to stay. In terms of how you and your company should align themselves, that is something I think startup founders need to kind of take a hard look at almost on a regular basis. How do you see when players like Bajaj and Yamaha and Honda enter this market in a big way? Right now, the market is not big enough for them to actually enter in. But what if they start, launching products which are very competitively priced? How are you going to differentiate yourself once that happens? Is something that is and this happens even in established startups. Like people, these are something that cause panic attack to best of the CEOs. But it's important that the core team should keep asking hard questions. And the best way is also to talk to industry experts and other founders around you. Try to create a community rather than a competitive environment. In the sense that Indian EV industry is quite at least at this stage is quite early and quite small, and I think we can all benefit from sharing information. So be open about what you think, and try to understand from others what are they thinking, why are they doing certain things, what was the reasoning behind it. So these are some of the exercises I think early founders should do on quite a regular basis in amongst the core team, and this will help you safeguard yourself or align yourself. Like Rahul pointed that they were making the vehicle, but because they had a robust battery system, they could actually survive longer. And now, is that a good decision or a bad decision? That is something that the core team needs to kind of debate out in the open, and be very truthful. And also having advisors on your board helps. As founders, we like to do our own thing and we are in the zone, but having advisors kind of, especially advisors who push you to talk about these difficult issues, are something that are more important than funding or your product or anything like that. I think asking the hard questions is something that founders would really should encourage amongst the team.
How have you all guys, Rahul, Pranav, and Sivabalan, how have you navigated through this?
I don't really think about it very honestly.
Yeah, and that tends to happen. We like the whole race to finish the product or put something out there is extremely is extreme. It tries to dominate your time and brain cells. But yes, as in that's why the good incubators will really help you think broader, think what's coming 10 years down the line. So the way I kind of approach it is, will Storm Motors be a company 20 years down the line? What is the answer for that? What will Storm Motors be doing 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line? Are our current goals towards that? Like I said, batteries are something that we are actually buying from outside right now, from particular vendors who we chosen. But is our long-term strategy that, or is it a small-term tactics decision that we've taken? So these are some of the things that should be encouraged and actually done on a regular basis, almost like a for startup founders, it's almost like you don't want to do all these things, but these are trust me, these are more important than your product building, especially early on.
Uh,
So, like Mr. Pratik pointed out, we just have been lucky to have good advisors in the team who have been basically questioning us in these lines almost every. We have a regular chat with them every fortnight. So they keep asking us on a regular basis, hey, what is it that you are trying to do? Does this align with your long-term vision, or is this, like he rightly pointed out, a strategic play for the short term so that you can get your product out immediately and then go about in the longer term you will have a different strategy. So I think that is one of the biggest things that has helped us, because one of our advisor is from the OE manufacturing space, especially in the area we are currently looking at, which is Ashok Leland. And then we have another person who is the distributor of these products, basically Kivraj Motors, who's again had his ears to the ground for a long time. So these kind of inputs from people who are very experienced in the field actually makes a lot of difference. That's how I think we've been able to get our first product at least right and out to market.
Yeah. And I think thinking laterally also helps. So I'll give you an example. Suppose you're running like a pastry shop, right? And it's the best pastry shop in the town. And your revenues are growing, and your orders are growing like crazy. There's one way to look at it is like, okay, I go ahead and open more outlets and expand the business. But the more prudent way of scaling is actually going the franchise model. Where you standardize, like the McDonald's model, where you standardize everything, all the raw material is being mainly supplied by you. That way you can scale much faster. So running a business sometimes gets you in this mode where I need to cut costs, I need to expand, I need to advertise, I need to get more customers through the door. But actually the big opportunity is standardizing your supply chain and all of that. So also thinking broadly about the space will help you make yourself more robust when competition really directly looks you in the face. Yeah, I think that is another thing that I would encourage you to do.
Thank you so much, Pratik. So unfortunately, I think we are out of time. So are there any final questions our startups would like to be addressed by Pratik? Um, so I don't think so. So thank you so much for doing this, Pratik. It's like a great pleasure to have founders like you actually chatting with our startups. Especially in the hardware sector, where like your advice will really help them navigate through this industry. So it's like great having people like you and Chetan also doing this, as well as for all of the people watching at home. So from the Conquest team, I'd like to thank you. And so I guess you can connect with our startups, I guess, in order to like communicate with them more uh, later on. So with that, I guess we'll be ending the session. So thank you so much, Pratik, and thank you also to Rahul, Pranav, Sivapalan, and also Chetan. So yes, it was great having you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was great. And yeah, you can connect with me offline if you have any specific questions. But this was great, and keep building. I think we need more of you guys around. And I'm sure, we'll kind of help grow this whole Indian automotive industry in a big way. Yeah.
Thanks, Pratik. Thank you, Harsh. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot, Pratik. Thank you.